Go on, admit it. We've all done it. I've done it, you've definitely done it, and I have definitely done it very, very recently with this Negishi Japanese white pine. It's a cultivar, dwarf cultivar, and I picked it up from my local nursery last year with Yella for about £20, and I thought, bargain. And then I took it home and stared at it. And we've definitely all done that before. Well, this one is designed today for the beginners who've gone out there, they've found this great material, and it is great material. They're a bit confused because there's lots of branches. They're a bit confused because there's a bit of a gap here, but there's lovely growth up here. Maybe I can bend it, wire it, make it into some magical tree which we've seen in the books. Will you repot it? Will we prune it? Didn't someone say somewhere that you can't prune, repot a white pine all in the same go? I'm a beginner. I don't know what to believe. Well, don't worry about it, because today in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I would approach and how probably you should approach something that you've just found from your nursery, and in particular a Japanese white pine. I'll explain to you exactly why and when you can repot these, and when you can actually both repot and take a substantial lot of growth. Because obviously there is a big difference, but I'll tell you more of that in a minute. Wow, the sun is streaming in, obviously keen to light up my best half. Anyway, you want to know all about this? You want to see what this turns into? Keep watching. Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat, and as I said earlier, today we're going to take this this nursery plant, dwarf Japanese white pine cultivar. I think it's like Negishi, and I'm not going to turn into a bonsai today. What I'm going to do is to show you, out of all this multitude of branches, which ones I would remove and why. What on earth we're going to do with that, and should we get fooled into wiring into some great shapes? And I'll explain why perhaps that's not such a great idea, but what we could actually do with that so that it benefits the bonsai in the long run. I'm also going to be having a look at the roots. And I know you'll be saying, yeah, but Zav, if you look at the roots and root prune and pot it, surely you can't also do the styling. Well, do you know what? Let's deal with that one straight away. This is a magnificent 50-60-year-old Japanese white pine which I've had since 2002. It's been repotted, it's been wired, it's been pruned, and right now it's going through a bit of a recovery period because I'm looking at taking some stuff back for inner growth. This one, would I ever consider doing a big repot and touch any of the foliage within a single year of each other? No. It's a very senior elderly specimen, nowhere near as old as some of the really big ones we see out there, but certainly it's what I'd call a mature white pine. And I think that's probably where I'm going to say it. If it's a mature white pine, if it's something that's already looking a bit like a bonsai, then do you know what? One insult a year. That's from my perspective, and certainly from the things I've read. I might repot it, and then I would wait a full calendar year before I started thinking about doing anything with the growth. Same really for junipers. But you know what? When you've got something that's a bit more juvenile, a lot healthier, well then you can be a little bit more adventurous. And although we won't be covering it in this video, what could I be doing? Because I will be doing stuff with other Japanese white pines. I'd certainly be going through and remove all the certainly third year needles. You'll notice them, they're yellow, and if you pull them they shall come away relatively easily. If you have to apply any sort of strength, then leave them in place, the tree still wants them. Also, if we look closer, the wire on this one has been on for just a year, and already on this branch here we've got a really deep amount of wire bite, which means it's good in one way, we've had loads of growth here, but unfortunately it means we're going to have a bit more scarring on our pine. Do you know what? Most people who've got older pines will see a lot of them have scarring, but I will be taking all that wire back off and potentially rewiring, but that is definitely for another video. Okay, so we've brought this back home with us. We're ever so excited. We've got all our cutters, and we've got our bits of stick, and we've got this because we're going to repot. We've got loads of wire because we think we should do that as well. And do you know what? It's a pretty juvenile piece of material. It's hardy. It can take both. I won't go nuts on the roots, but I will certainly have a dig around there, have a look and see if we can establish where the nabari is, and also establish just what sort of what sort of root spread we've got. More of the repot in a minute. But first of all, let's have a look and examine exactly what we've come back with, because although it looked great, we had all these branches, there are a few areas I think we need to look at closer. And probably the easiest way to do this is to start at the bottom. And got loads of those needles there, that's not a problem. But all this lower growth here is only serving one purpose. Unless the tree is literally going to be that tall, in which case we've got a very, very straight, taperless trunk. I'm going to say to you straight away, I can already say that I will remove those immediately. They could serve a purpose, or could have served a purpose if we were going to be using them for trunk thickening, but I've got something else to do that. So I'll take that one off, and I'll take that one off. And the primary reason for removing those is not only was it not serving a purpose, but it was also contributing towards thickening right at the base. We had two either side. Now if you're going to keep one of them, say this one you wanted to keep for sacrificial purposes, you let it grow right on, well, you would definitely have to make sure you removed any other branch that was opposite it. I.e. when you get to those cartwheels, like for example higher up here, you know, we've got this cartwheel 1, 2, 3, so we've got 3 branches on it. You can see clearly there is already quite a big tire being formed around it. Already. Should have done this last year. We need to reduce immediately by 2 branches. We can follow it even higher up and go again. When we look right at the top here, we've got a multitude of branches coming from the same point, all within various relation, and it looks like, do you know when the Dalek head swivels around, it's like this big sort of watermelon? Well, you've got that same effect here. When you're looking close, you've got this great big bulge. That bulge, unfortunately, will probably always be there. So the earliest stage when we get this sort of material, and you see it with pines and junipers, you really do have to make that decision about reducing to just 2, which is normally the main trunk, plus 1, as quickly as you can. So what's the other area we need to discuss? It's that great big length there, isn't it? Now I know that frustration you get when you see a tree and you see all these branches, you think, I'm going to be able to really make it good. And normally in our heads as a beginner we're thinking the old S-bend shape. We'll have a branch on the left, branch on the right, and work our way up. And as you look at this you think, well, maybe this one will be 1, or this one will be 1. And you sort of overlook the fact that you've got, well, that is as long as, if not a bit longer, than the length of the tree below it. And on top of that, there's absolutely no taper either. And you have to then make a really, really tough decision. If I wire this into lots of wiggly shapes, will I achieve anything higher at the second half of the tree? I'd like to think that what's happened at the top sort of replicates what's gone on in the bottom to some way, shape or degree. So you'd expect to see a lot of wiring here if this was going to be wired out. And I'm going to say now, this serves for me only one purpose, unless I decided to take it down as a semi-cascade or a full cascade. That is an option. In fact, shall I quickly have a look at that? And immediately the problem is exactly the same, because we can bend this right down and perhaps put some movement, but the truth is with a cascade is everywhere, unless you keep that dead straight, which is going to be boring, we're not going to do that, you need to be putting some movement and some curves in it. And everywhere there's a bend should be a branch coming from it. So though we could potentially try to do something like that, perhaps hide it with some growth here, you're always going to have this area here which is never going to have anything on it. It's never going to have branches on it, and you need to make that decision. Are you going to go fully cascade, bring it down and try and work it that way and use what's around it to cover or disguise the fact that you haven't got any branches close in? Or are you going to look at it and say, my tree right now is this bottom third here. I'm going to grow my tree from here. With that in mind, I know that I will not be producing a bonsai today. So anyone here who's expecting to see a bonsai by the end of it, sorry, you're going to see a developing white pine that may become a great bonsai in 3 or 4 years' time, certainly recognisable as. So what's the function of this? I'm glad you asked, because there's only one other function, and that's to work as a sacrifice branch. While this is pulling in energy, and we will reduce it a bit, we're going to get rid of all this sort of stuff here. In fact, let's do it now. Get rid of all these side shoots so that energy is going one of two places. It's either going that way to thicken this, or it's going down there to thicken the branches. And I think we can pretty clearly see the issues and the problems we have when we allow multiple branches to grow. We've all seen it on our bonsais, but that is probably another one of those bonsai no-nos, and there's nothing you can do. You can certainly try and nibble away at it at different times, or when you have things like this, you keep another branch, you can try and make your bend actually at that point, and then try and disguise where it is so your front disguises the actual width and size. But overall, if you've let it get to there, you've already created a major fault. Now, of course, there is another pretty practical guideline that we also need to be aware of, and generally you'll hear people say, oh, don't ever take more than 1/3 of the growth. Well, I've clearly taken more than 1/3 of the growth. Everything here is gone, and you've got to ask yourself, what is that growth being used for, and what is it looking to support? If I had no root system and also took away all the growth, then I'm creating a big problem for me. And I think the first question will say, what's the big difference between the juniper and the pine? And very, very broadly, apart from the fact that I don't like juniper very much, the pine, so long it's got a really, really strong root system, then it can certainly support less foliage. So you can take a lot more foliage away from your healthy pine, which is what I'm going to do here. This is purely sacrifice whatever growth goes on there. What I want is down here. So the roots really just need to support what I want down here. So I'm down here. Am I going to take more off? Yeah, you bet your bottom dollar are, because while I continue to leave these cartwheel branches on there, it will continue to exacerbate, I'm not going there, exasperate the cartwheel effect, which we've seen up here. So let's have a look and see which of these branches I'm going to remove. I'm hopefully going to get to the point where I've just got 2 or 3 side branches, and then I'm going to tell you what the priority is going to be. I've basically got to look in here, remove all these little dead bits and pieces, stuff that's going off the bottom, until we're down to just the few branches that I need to consider. The decision making is actually quite easy. I've got this long one here which has got lots and lots of ramification. It's the biggest and thickest. Then we've got a secondary one here which a lot more movement, but certainly proportionate wise is a lot thinner. And then we've got a third one here at the back, which again has got some ramification on it, but is the smallest of the lot. Now in this instance I'm going to take a decision. I'm going to just leave myself one. So I'm going to keep the biggest one. Also, the reason why I'll pick it is when you look at it, the first point of ramification occurs within that first 1.5 centimeters, whereas the others you actually go out a lot further. I like that. So let's remove those and those. And now we're definitely well past, well, we're approaching the 50% point. So I've now reduced that to 2. I could actually look at this and take the option that the whole tree, remove all this, and the tree will actually be grown from these ones here. Meaning that in terms of swellings and lumps, I can certainly reduce this over time and grow a whole new tree on this. And that's a very, very realistic option. And the reason why I think like that is because if we look higher up here, apart from the fact the there's no taper between that and the lower part, but here we've actually got a double wagon wheel bulge there. It's almost like we've got the classic yo-yo there. All we need is a bit of string in there. That is going to be nearly impossible to disguise. it's only going to get worse if I continue to keep this on as a sacrifice. So if I don't go that and try and look for something higher up, I'm going to always have this yo-yo effect. So sometimes you look at the material afterwards and go, do you know what? I can't see an easy way. The only way of doing that is you get rid of this branch here, and then you try, well no, you're always going to have that groove. You get rid of these two, and you'd be left with that one. Very quickly gets quite difficult. These are the sort of problems you are definitely going to be encountering with most sort of nursery purchased material like this, because they will let those grow before you get anywhere near them. And again, it comes down to I've said it a lot of times, sometimes when we're first starting our tree, we need to make some big, bold decisions and choices. And we're never going to be able to have two on top of each other, so I'm going to have to remove one. I don't like that yo-yo effect. I really, in my head, I'm thinking I don't know what I can do with it, which means I'm already thinking the tree's going to be here. All of that's going to go. That's going to be the sacrifice branch to thicken it, and we're going to have to really get some wire on it. So that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some wire on it first. I'm going to use some aluminium or aluminum wire, and I think this is 5mm. I don't know what gauge that is, about 900 gauge, I don't know. We'll whack that in, and seeing the way it's already moving that way, I will be doing the wire clockwise around there. Really, really tight. And I will probably need another piece of wire on this. Oh, I said that was a branch, so I might, I definitely don't want that one. It really doesn't matter what we do going higher up there. And I think I'm probably going to put a second piece on. And as you know, you get the best leverage if you keep the wire on the roll, and it also solves the problem of knowing how much you're supposed to cut off. So just make sure we get this nice. I want this to be nice and firm on the trunk, and I don't need to go much further than that. Now, in terms of the bending and the mechanics of it, again, you're obviously bending in the direction of your coils, and at this stage I'm just trying to find a way. I think this has got to be the tree. And we want this to be going up because this is our sacrifice, so we want that. I do still think this is the tree here, in which case I want this. Well, when I pot it, I could be potting it at an angle. And that's the other thing to consider. Although most of these come in with straight trunks, as soon as you get it into a pot, you can already start a different potting angle. So this is where I go, I'm just going to have a little think about it before I come back and tell you what I've decided to do. Again, if we removed all of that and grew the tree from here, that's going to be, I think that's going to be the option we'll go to in the long term. For now, I'm going to keep a few of these branches on, and I'll show you why, and have a bit of fun. But what I do need to do is decide, is the front going to be here, or is it going to be in here? And the answer is straightforward. This area right here is the big bulbous area which I'm trying to hide. If that's at the front, we're always going to see it. So the front's going to be there. So we'll have these two branches coming towards and hiding where that will eventually be removed from. Now, that's not to say that this isn't all going to go as well. So what I do want to do is I'm actually going to straighten this. Well, actually a little bit. We need to look and see, we want to reduce the chance of swellings on these junction points. 3 branches, so I'm going to be removing 1 from each side. I will keep the back branch. Oh, yeah, that's got a bit of ramification closer in, so we'll get rid of that one and get rid of that one. So we're not going to get any swelling coming up here. A bit of extreme bending. So that should this tree become the original one, these will be on the right plane to act as branches. And I can see a few of you saying, yeah, but what are you going to do with the rest of those? There we go, they can be wired out at different stages. I was thinking of having quite an interesting, maybe even a double trunk. Let me do a little bit of wiring on this branch here, and we'll come back and talk about what I'm going to do on this side. Actually, that's my answer for now. And the aim I was getting was all the usable branches. I want them pointing up, trying to shorten them by putting bends in them. And my hope is that what I'm going to do now is allow them to continue to grow out. And what I'm looking for ultimately is, with all this growth coming on, is to get some back budding happening a lot closer in. By putting these little bends in there, hopefully that's where I'm going to get them. Now, you know me, I go for sort of stuff that's a little bit different, and the tree, obviously ignoring that, is going to be in here. And I'm going to have this sort of multi-trunks coming up from different points. I think it's the way I can disguise and get past certainly the big issue we've got here. And if in the end that doesn't work, bearing in mind I do want to keep a little bit of foliage on this after this, I can still remove that entire section, or, and this is where I was thinking, all of this gets ginned at a later stage, but several years later. So that's what I've done with it. I said to you right at the beginning, this was not going to be turned into a bonsai by the end of this, and many of you will go, I don't know what you've done with it. And here's the reality. We'll often have these conundrums when we get these nursery plants, unless we've grown them from seed, unless we've had an absolute big influence in their early development, we're going to be overcoming problems with swelling at multiple branches at cartwheel junctions. We're going to have to find solutions that suit us and that ultimately will suit the tree. Now, if this is healthy, it will back bud. We will get more opportunities and options. But I can see in here an interesting design, one that's sustainable, and one that I think could be interesting to follow over the next few years. I am now going to have a little look down here and see what we've got, because what I'd like to do is keep probably as much as the roots of what I'd probably like to do is keep at least 80% of the roots if I can, but I want to get it into a much better mix. So let's get this out and have a look and see what these roots look like, shall we? Look, this is all very, very dry. If you notice how dry those roots look, the white stuff you can see there, that's the beneficial fungus, but yeah, actually very, very dry. Probably could do with a bit of watering. So let's just carefully, and you can see the soil, it's in this cocoa coir type stuff, very, very organic mix. And as I say, I will probably just try and sort the roots out. Probably start from the bottom here. Got a great big mat of stuff down there. And you've all seen me repot stuff before, but I'm just going to loosen this up. Probably try and remove some of these. They're all breaking off anyway. Generally, when they pot these things up, they are looking for them to be purchased that season, and then for the owners to be potting them on in their garden pretty well straight away, so these trees can get some real organic mix and grow as proper trees. So again, probably the decision not to do this last year was actually a bad one, which is another big lesson. If you buy yourself a nursery plant, be ready to do something with it then and there. Was going to put it into just this size here, which would probably be alright if I'd already had a year or two with those roots, but I think I'm going to play a bit safer. I'm going to put it into a bigger one so we can give more room for new root growth to go out and pot it up in that. So let's get it in there quickly probably 30% pumice, 30% Akadama based, and also a little bit of zeolite. There's some activated charcoal and some slow release root growth. And as you all know, as we move towards the autumn, it's a time when most of these things we're starting to put on more root growth. So let's get some. And there we go. Nicely into this pot. I'm going to give this a really thorough soaking and watering, and then I'm going to basically leave it down the bottom of the garden for at least a year, if not two. I'm going to wait. I want all these shoots to go out. I want them to grow, and then we can revisit and see if we actually get something developing from a lot closer in, because I know many of you are going to be looking at these wiggly branches up here and going, that's not bonsai. Do you know what? If you're patient, if you hang around, if you subscribe and hit bell notifications, you can hang around and find out whether or not in a few years' time you can point at me and say, I was right, you know, it was never going to be a bonsai. But truthfully, I think this has got a lot of options, a lot of hope for the future. It just needs to get its legs in there and grow. And this is my solution to that nursery plant conundrum, and I see a future for it, and that's the main thing. I see the future. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, the practical application of how we approach this nursery tree, how we approach why we have to remove branches, and actually answering the question, how much can I actually remove on the roots if I'm also going to be doing a lot of extensive removal from the top. And the reality is the roots that are there are definitely going to be able to support what's already there. And again, with a pine, especially a young pine in development, I'm very happy that's going to be fine. But you know what? You'll find out next year when we start revisiting this for updates. Which really only leaves us to decide what we're going to do next at the bonsai retreat. And I think it's time that we actually had a look at this incredible Pyracantha, which is a gift courtesy of Joe Carland. And a lovely bonsai enthusiast, has been doing bonsai for the best part of 50 years, loads of stories, and if you haven't seen the video, it's well worth it. He's met all the greats well back in the 80s. That's the video if you want to watch it. Otherwise, you need to hang around and watch the next video, because you're going to see exactly what I intend to do with this. And you'll be surprised, because that's a big lump of wood. And I have no doubt that the stuff I'm going to be doing with this is going to draw your interest. You are going to watch it. Apart from that, make sure you watch Joe's video. Happy bonsaiing. God bless. Cheers.